Okay, I'm back. To really get some type of clarification on that subject, for one thing, is that the Liberian embassy has decided to basically honor his immunity, his diplomatic status. And in terms of him beating the case, the thing is that if you go back, just go back to the case for a second. He was never convicted of child molestation because there was no evidence. That's the first thing.
Right.
So beating the case is just that was brought to the reality is that there was no evidence to prove to him. That's the first step, is that there was no evidence against him, and that was the main announcement. And the next step is just releasing him. So what's supposed to be going on now is that he's going to be released into Liberian custody at this point, and that's supposed to take place within a month of October. So it's now a waiting period for that to take place. So
okay.
that's the skinny of it. That's the reality of it. Is now it's a waiting period. So the next level is, okay, he'll be in their custody, and it's like basically like, let's say you get arrested for something, you won't even be in jail. You'll be like in holding. So he'll be in holding until the next step is for him to be released, which is basically almost like a TBD to be decided at that point after that. So him beating the case was just, okay, the case that was against him, the main charges and all other stuff, that was beat because there was no physical evidence of anything at all. And even with
right.
the stories and the different testimonies, none of it matched. So that's why, if going back into the case, you realize none of it matched at all. It was nothing of it was connected to anything that was legible or had any evidence whatsoever. So it had to be let go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the main reasons why throughout this period of 10 years or so, he wanted people to stay in the media and to prove his innocence, as opposed to just waiting back on what, well, this is what it says, so we're going to wait on this, and he didn't want anybody doing that. And I noticed that's what people continued to do, was just wait on what was said as opposed to actually making something happen. And that's the thing. It's like we had to wait. People were waiting, okay, wow, we get this information, so then that's about it, as opposed to, okay, everyone mostly already knew this if they were paying attention to the case. This just ends up becoming an announcement. And I understand, of course, we want to push this as much as possible, because this would mean that the tag on him, number one, is false. Because now usually, when you talk about a father to people automatically bring that up, as opposed to that's like, okay, well, this is what he is, so we don't give him any more validity anymore because of that, because of an allegation, but the allegation is false. So to continue to keep saying it is without any real evidence doesn't even make any sense anymore. So that's to basically elaborate on your question about what was said. If you had, hopefully that answers your question a little bit more.
Oh, most definitely, man. That makes sense, because I heard that he was in Liberia years ago. Like, I think it was like 3 years ago that he had been released, and so it was a lot of speculation as to where is he? Is he safe? How do we play into this? Why is he not here versus there? But yeah, that definitely sums it up. It seems like custody will be transferred to Liberia, at the end of this year. You said October, so I mean that definitely makes sense considering he's a diplomat. So they couldn't deny that, even though they fought against it for years. I kind of felt like that was the way he was leaning. Now here's another question I got, because this is something that the tribe here in Nashville has been asking, because there's been a lot of information and then misinformation put out since he was kidnapped. And one of the things was, ever since I was a kid growing up and studying from Pop, I was always taught that he was from Sudan. Born in Sudan, 1945. Mary York, that's Umi, and then his dad was a descendant from the Mokti family, right? Al-Hadi, right? So I'm like, okay, 1945. Some of the newer books, I want to say, gosh, I can't remember what they're called, but some of the newer books break down that Doc was born in another African country, whether it was Liberia, whether it's some other place, but they don't give any reference to the Sudanese birth. I know that some of that shit is not relevant because I know who he is, but at the same time, I don't like people putting out misinformation, especially stuff that I've been learning last 20 years. So could you clarify, like, some of the newer books are called, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called, but it seems like to me like some of the newer books are not his writing style, and some of the old heads from the Answer Allah community don't even believe that he wrote the new books. So can you clarify some of the newer books, the new lessons, and the actual changing of some of the information from the, the Ansar or the HTM days as opposed to right now?
Okay. Well, let me see. We start from the books first. Those are his. It's in bits and pieces, and a lot of it is not being supervised by him being put together. So what happens is he'll write a letter to somebody. So at one point, what he was doing was he was writing letters. He was writing letters to people, and within the letters, like him writing a book. So what was happening was, okay, he would write a letter, and then it would be, okay, well, this is part of a book, so let me go ahead and write this letter, and it end up becoming a book. So what happened was a lot of the information that was in letters became books, but a lot of it was pieced together. And so that ended up becoming, I think it's back in 2007 when certain small books that end up becoming what the actual facts is now.
Yeah, that's what they call actual facts.
Right. Or what they call the Mayattat. And a lot of it is not being supervised, but it is him. It's just because you know that for a fact it's him because he was getting in trouble recently for writing. And they took some of his privileges away because they're like, okay, that's part of the reason why he's in Florence is because they say that his writing is a form of mind control. So, a lot of the information that's coming is his. It's just that a lot of it is in pieces, so it's being pieced together. So he's not able to supervise the information first before it's getting published. So a lot of it is misconstrued but then it's pieced together from the misconstrued part to what he's saying within the letter, and that's what's happening right now.
Okay.
So that's the situation of what's going on right now with that information in terms of the actual facts. But the second question you asked about the Sudan, I asked the same question to him back in 2009, and his answer to that was this. Abdul Rahman, who was El-Hadi's father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Abdul Rahman, his mother is Ghanaian. What Pops decided to do after a while was, because Abdul Rahman is from Sudan, but what he decided to do, because we're in Nuwaupu is dealt with the mother mitochondria, because Nuwaupu is a feminine word, a masculine word. In Islam, your genealogy is connected to wherever your father is born, that's what your genealogy is. But in Nuwaupu, in the ancient science of Nuwaupu, that's dealing with the mother, dealing with the woman, and the mother mitochondria. And his mother, I don't have her name, but from the letter I got from my father, his mother is Ghanaian. So Pops, being mother mitochondria, what he decided to claim, he's claiming the Ghanaian parts because he's claiming the woman. He's claiming the mother. That's where he's connecting himself to at this point. So depending on your perspective, if you want to see it from the Ansar perspective, it's Sudanese. But if you want to see it from the Nuwaupu perspective, it's Ghanaian. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. That would be basically his grandfather's mother.
Right.
Right. So that's like his great grandmother.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
And plus, sometimes I understand that Pop's got to use shit that works, man. And so I'm not even hating on the fact that he can switch this lane up and switch this lane up and still make it make sense. So I totally get that. So the Sudanese stuff is accurate. 1945 is accurate, but it's kind of using the mitochondria side to get back to the diplomatic immunity with the Ghanaian. Was that what I'm hearing? Because if not, here's my third question: what will be the point of bringing in the Ghanaian bloodline? How is it relevant? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, it became relevant just from two parts: from the mother mitochondria, and the fact that after a while we were making headway with the people of Ghana, and these were what we will call, and what he decided to say after a while, that these are quote unquote Pan-African practices, because we were making a connection to a group who has a Pan-African mindset in Ghana. They were welcoming us as a people to Ghana. Ghana is one of the few countries now in Africa that's not too Muslimized, that they're welcoming those that have been in the Americas for as long as we have, to make a connection to them. And so part of it wasn't like it was like a hustle. It was just, okay, I am recognizing Ghana as the mother mitochondria of my family, and I am recognizing them as my family because I'm recognizing mother mitochondria. So that is the main one of the reasons why he decided to connect himself to Ghana. You know, and he's over in Ghana right now. I mean, well, not him, but there's people over in Ghana right now that's Nuwaupu that's actually building for the people that are there, because the people that are over in Ghana right now are heavily, if you want to talk about ghetto here in America that white supremacy has created, is just as worse in parts of Ghana right now. So that's the mindset that he was saying that Nuwaupu need to have, is that we got to get off the mindset that Africans owe us something. No, we owe the African because that's the mother. So if we're going to the continent, we have to be ready to build with the people, as opposed to going there saying, yeah, I'm there. You know, a lot of us here, the Negro mindset is, I want to say, I just want to go there and say I went, just to say you did something, or just to say you went, but you didn't do any work in the place that your ancestors are laying. So that's the reason for the connection to that, if that makes sense to you, if you got the answer to the question.
That makes sense. I know that what we were doing prior to him being kidnapped was building. Well, it appeared that we were building up places in Georgia. You know, putting more stores there, trying to create our own commerce. Of course, the land was there for the festivities and the festivals every year. Based on what you're saying now, is there some type of expectation for migration to the motherland to do this building?
I mean, it's a great expectation of that, because he's making his way there. So as he's making his transition, we have to get the same mindset as well. I mean, the question was asked to me, what do you feel about moving over there? I said, I'm all for it, but we have to change the mindset that we have here now. We have a very corrupted mindset, so we can't bring corruption to a place that is already dealing with neocolonialism there, and we want to move over there and bring the same mindset there. It's not going to work. So, yeah, the transition is necessary, but it doesn't rule out businesses here, because we have to still create businesses here. Just like you said, he was basically making alliances all over Georgia with a lot of political people. Now, that I'm not sure it can ever be reconnected again. I seriously doubt that because of the negative perception. But that doesn't stop us from still building. If a person, wherever you are within your universe, you still have to build around you wherever you are until you're able to make the move that you really want to make.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. I see that. One thing this is just personal, and I'll share this with you. Papa is from Africa. A lot of us aren't. So, yeah, that would be a big challenge, having to change the mindset. to get over there and work with the people that's already there. And from what you're telling me and from what I kind of researched myself, it's just as hood over there as it is anywhere.
Yeah.
So I see him going over there because of the diplomatic community, but I'm trying to find, like, the significance of other people, which is us here, you know, going over there and not knowing anything about that place or anyone there. You know, that's the only concern that I would have. Is like, we don't know shit about Ghana except what we saw on TV. So I guess, you know, anything would have to be a first step to go there and physically interact with the people. I kind of get that, you know what I'm saying? And then I also know throughout the years that, shoot, you hold on to the rope. You follow the master wherever you go. I get that too. Right. But there also has to be like a contingency plan or some preparations to make that shit actually work versus Pop said move over here, and then people move and they starve to death. You know, it has to be some type of structure set up. So that would be my only concern. I mean, I'm down with rides wherever Pop is, but it's got to make sense, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that. And that's one of the big problems I notice is that people move without a real plan. There's no mission statement with what you're doing. That's the thing, is that we've been doing that for years. And the next thing you know, you move somewhere and you become bitter because you never planned yourself. Pops is not going to plan anything for you. He's going to make a move. He's going to say, this is where we need to be. And you have to prepare to go. You can't just jump up and go. If you hear, okay, well, if Pop said, like the main example from last year, Pop said move above the Mason-Dixon line, and everyone just moved. Now, at the end of the day, a lot of people who moved, they couldn't even afford to actually move, so they moved and went into poverty. Mm-hmm. So I can understand if you're a person that's able to be mobile like that and you're able to create for yourself, because you may have a business like that. But a lot of Nuwaupians had jobs, and you gave up the job. So I clearly get hold on to the rope. But if you move in a situation that you're not even an asset to him, how did that make sense?
Right.
You know, you have to be an asset to somebody. You're not even an asset to yourself at this point. That doesn't make sense. So we got to be better than that. My thing is, I would never move into a situation without being prepared to deal with that situation first. You know, regardless, even if it's not moving to Africa, I'm just moving state to state, and I have to learn, okay, well, let me go ahead and tough it out, and then you end up toughening out for like a couple of years. You don't want to do that.
Right.
You know, especially when you have family going on.
You got children or whatever you have. Yeah, you're right. Brother, you hit it right on the head, man. That makes sense. Because I did notice, you know, from what I was being invited to, there was supposed to be January, something like that, like a Nuwaupu ball in New York. And so I asked the sister, I said, well, why New York? Yeah, I've never really been in New York. The ball it's always been in the South, you know what I mean? And she's like, Doc wants everybody to move back to New York. And I'm like, oh, really? Where did he say that at? Can you give me the tape or the recording or the book or the scroll? Because that's what I'm on. Like, if you said that he said it, then show it to me. And she couldn't do that. And I noticed that, you know, through a couple of the postings, a few of his other children, you know, they were talking about they were in New York. And so I'm like, okay. I never really heard him say that, move back to New York. You know, so can you kind of shed a little light on maybe a sub-migration of people back to the NYC? Is that something that he expected us to do, or was that just a group of people?
That's something that he wanted everyone who was able to do it. If you weren't able to do it, because the main point that he made, I remember hearing and reading when someone sent me what he said verbatim, because someone had wrote it down from a visit, said that if you can't make it, you can't make it. There's people who are rooted, like, because the main statements was about people who are in Atlanta. Most people that were in Atlanta, they've been rooted in Atlanta since the 90s. And their question was, okay, if I can't move, how does that, you know, if I really cannot afford to do it, how is this going to work? And the statement was, okay, look, if you can't do it, you can't do it. These are for people who are able to move about like that. But if you're already deeply rooted, then it is what it is. You know, but for the people who are able to do it, then you're able to do what you can do. But if you can't, you can't. You know, I think a lot of people do things from a religious standpoint. Like you have to be extremely zealous to prove a point when you end up putting yourself out there as being a loser. That's not going to work.
True.
You know, no,
so if you can do it, do it. If you can't do it, then okay, you can do what you can do. Which leads me to another question.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind me asking, like the migration to New York, what's the meaning behind it, if you do know, or the purpose? Like, I know with leadership, when you say move this if you can or move this if you can't, it's got to be some type of strategy behind it. And usually the master teacher is the one who really knows that has that foresight before he shares it with us. But I think on the downside of it, you know, people love Pop. They know who he is, you know, for the most part. And when he asks them to do something, you're right, they will do it from a religious, psychological mindset, right? Like, this is the master teacher asking me to do something. If I don't do it, I'm failing him versus, you know, as opposed to somebody else just asking you to do something. So it's like when he asks, it has more power and weight to those who really follow him and love him, because we'll do it. But like you said, without a strategy, that shit is idiotic. So I'm asking, you know, like, what's the purpose of going back to New York when you look at, I don't know if you acknowledge some of the things he's taught over the years as far as prophecy, but anytime there's some shit to go, it's always like New York or Chicago or a big-ass city to go first. So I thought the migration to the South in the 90s was more like a sanctuary and getting more into a safe environment coming out of the Nubian Islamic Hebrew phase, so we wouldn't be targeted as a religious group as far as Muslim. Right. So how does that play into us migrating back to New York? What would be the purpose of being in New York? Because right now, I mean, people can pretty much do what they can do in New York in any place because of the internet and technology. So is there a strategic purpose of being in New York, or if you follow what I'm saying? Does it what strategy is it?
The reason why was just what I read in updates. The reason why he wanted to get everyone to move above the Mason-Dixon line, because it wasn't just New York, it was anywhere above the Mason-Dixon line. That's what was stated. The reason why he wanted to do that, get people to move, was because of the situations that we're dealing with in terms of the beast, dealing with, killing our people off. And he felt the best place to be was above the Mason-Dixon line, whether it be D.C., whether it be Philly, whether it be New York, in those areas, as opposed to being deep in the South. He's in his mind, he's done with the South, so it's time to go back up north. That's why he's uprooted the main base back up to Brooklyn, back up to Bushwick. So this is something that's his plan because of that reason. That's what I read. So that was his plan.
Okay.
Everybody, like I said, everybody is not able to do that. And I know, like I said, from experience, I know people who've made the move, and they seriously just could not afford to do it. And now you're in poverty because you know within yourself you could not afford to do it, but you did it anyway just to prove something. You felt like you were proving something to him. But you put yourself, or not just yourself and your family, out there to not succeed, because the whole purpose of Nuwaupu was sound right reasoning. But if it's not for yourself individually, a sound right reasoning, if it's not sound right reasoning for you to move and you did it anyway, how did it make sense? It didn't make sense because you did it based on perception as opposed to what would be best at this time. Mm-hmm. That's my thing. Because you asked, that was his reasoning for it. And I'm sure it's a deeper reason further behind, because the next question that a lot of people ask, well, look, we had the I'm America map that came out, and you had the vortex that was in specific places, and, and in certain parts of the United States that was supposed to be underwater and frozen. New York was one of them. So what was if we're supposed to be going by this, then what was the reason for the change? What was the reason for going back up north? And that was the question that was asked several times,
right.
because a lot of people were just scratching their heads. It was like, wait a second, like what, which they're well within their right for asking that question, but that was his reasoning for it. So I can't, for me, just me being me, I'm not him. So I can only give you what he said, but I can't give you that's like me making a statement, but someone else hears my statement and tries to interpret my words, and I'm like, that's not why I said that. So they end up being 100% wrong. So for me, the best thing for me to do is you ask that question on what he said, I can only answer it based upon what I know he said and not try to interpret it my own way. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And personally, over the years, I've developed hopefully an understanding that when Doc says something, there's a reason or meaning behind him just saying it, right? And I think, he's a human being as well as, a spiritual being, so he's going through the phase of life and understanding things too. So I get that they killing us in the South, but Baltimore, Cleveland, Ferguson, all of that's north of the Mason-Dixon line. So it's like they're killing us all over the place. They're killing us in California with Oscar Grant. It's like that can happen anywhere. But I do understand and respect what he was saying about the South and how they're killing us down here. But to me, that's a little bit spread out, and it's like I need more from him on that. So maybe that's something I'll have to probe deeper with as far as the strategy from the South back to New York, which I consider one of the most detrimental cities in the country right now, because if anything pop, it's going to pop there usually first anyway. And like you said, New York is 3 times more expensive than the South. So you got to have an infrastructure set up if you expect a migration of people who are not millionaires to be able to survive there. So I appreciate you answering that question for me to the best of your ability, but I think I have to probe a little bit deeper, as time moves forward, because I don't fully understand that.
No, and you are supposed to. That's not, I would never tell a person, you're not supposed to do that. That's religious, because you're supposed to at least wait until, let's say, for example, someone asks him, like the same question I asked, about the America map and the Mason-Dixon line, and then you mix that with what you just said, because that was very statistically accurate with what's going on in New York and what's going on in Baltimore and what's going on in D.C., because even, let's say, for example, you use D.C. and Baltimore. D.C. and Baltimore are little bit chocolate cities. Those are like heavily populated black areas. So if you're just saying that area, people are going to be like, okay, well, what about going on in Ferguson? That's Midwest. That's above Mason-Dixon. What's going on with that? The best way to deal with that is, let's say, for example, someone puts that in the question and they ask, like, okay, well, you said this, what about this? That it has to be left with whatever his answer is, as opposed to someone just saying, well, what he meant was, and then, again, he ends up being wrong because he don't know what he really meant when he said it. He just made a statement,
Right.
And so whoever was able to do it, if they were like, okay, well, if he say it, then I'm going to go, as opposed to someone saying, okay, well, look, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to weigh the situation out because I'm not really sure about this, but I really trust the master teacher, so I'm going to just, when I hear a little bit more to piece it to, for it to have full sound right reasoning, then I'm going to go ahead and do what I have to do. But for right now, for the strength of myself and my family, I'm going to stay put until I can really get more of an understanding of that statement. Because that's Nuwaupu, as opposed to someone just jumping up and going. I'm like, Pops is not an evangelist priest where he just tells people to do something and you do it. No, it's not like that. If a statement is made and a person doesn't get the statement and it sounds fishy, you got to wait a lot of times until you get more of it, because, again, he's locked up, 23-hour lockdown. So a lot of what we're getting, like, it's statements that was made prior to that I had to wait to hear more information and piece it together. so it can make more sense as opposed to just because he's been like that for years. Even before being locked up, he'll make a statement to like 10 people, and one person will run up and say, "Yo, Pop said blah blah blah," and you're like, "Huh?" And then you got to go back and ask him, "No, that's not what I meant. I said this," and then, "Oh, okay, it makes sense." As opposed to what we got to deal with now, which is a lot of, a message that's 100% pure, but by the time you get it, it's like 65%.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on right now. So I clearly understand where you're coming from. You're not wrong for that because you're using non-reasoning because you're like, okay, let me decipher and wait until I get more of that information first before I just up and just hear that and then just go with that, as opposed to, waiting until we get a little more information, then we can get a full understanding.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I appreciate you addressing that, bro. I think this is something that we've been talking about here in Tennessee for years. It's kind of crazy, but I'll put it to you like this: when, I think it was 2001. 2001 is when was it 2001 and 2002 was when the kidnapping took place, and then things started to 2002. Okay, so 2002 was when the kidnapping took place, and from 2002 up until for most of us, let's just say present day, right? That's a lot of years that went by. Where Papa also told us before it happened that he wasn't going to be he wasn't going to teach all the time. He was going to be taken away or leave, or there will be a period of time when he wouldn't be in the teaching position or the leadership position. We would kind of like, as students, we would be on our own, and we will be pretty much responsible for everything he's taught us and using that to push forward without him being that guide or that spiritual guide or that, you know what I'm saying? So I get that. I think as time moved forward, a lot of us thought about, well, shit, what if everything already happened? What if he just dipped out? What if the mission is over? What if we're the ones that stuck down here in the hereafter? Has anybody ever thought about that or addressed that? Because I hear so much information and misinformation about Dwight York being there. He's like 30-some years old, and then, Dr. York being in there. Dr. York's not in prison, and then Don Nicoleone is screaming that Doc has been free, and everybody else that believes he's in jail is thrown off. So I guess the reality of it is that he's still there, and that he's going to be transferred later to what you said, Ghana.
Liberia.
Liberia. Okay. So that was a bunch of confusion for the last over a decade as to is he really incarcerated? And the shit got so crazy it seemed like an Elvis sighting. You know what I mean? Like, I seen Doc out, or I see him ride the bike one day, and I'm like, these niggas are spooked. Either he's there or he's gone. So it took a lot of conversations for us to realize that you really can't accept anything that you're hearing except if you know someone that knows him directly. And I think it pissed a lot of people off, and I think it turned a lot of people away from trying to work with the administration that we remember being on the land, that was pretty much running the economic and the sociology of the organization. So a lot of people here don't fuck with what we thought was the administration, from Kodesh or from the land or whatnot. Is there any type of structure now, besides doctors telling certain people certain things? Is there any type of structure now with the office or the administration for the nation, for this organization? Is there any type of structure in place, is what I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. No, it's there's of course administration that deals with books, and then you have, of course, AEO. That's still going on to this day. You have those that deal with his legal situation. Then you have the Liberian lawyer. So it's like a selected group. Like down through the years, it's like basically became like a revolving door of a lot of people. And that's with any place. That's with any type of organization. When the head is gone, a lot of times if the body is not in the right direction or is not in their mind ready to do certain things, they're going to go another direction. So the head is still there, it's just incarcerated. So I know about that whole, and then I hate to digress, but then going into what you said with the Don Corleone situation, I didn't know anything about her until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and someone played her for me, and I was like, why is she saying this? That's not true. Like I know for a fact, I know for a fact he's there. I know he's there, and it's a lot. It was a group that was going around saying, oh well, he's not locked up, Dwight York, that's not really him. I'm like, by the name that he's under Florence, Colorado, is Dwight York. That's the name that he's under. When he was in the hearing, and this is, a lot of people were not in the hearings. I was privileged to be there before I had to come here back to Houston in 2003 in Edenton, Georgia. The hearing was going on. Pops was, each time they kept calling him Dwight York, or they'll call him Malachi York. And the first thing was, when they called him Dwight York, he stood up and said, that's not my name. And you'll be fined $500 for using an incorrect nomer, or a misnomer, each time you think you're calling me. And that's in his mind, not in his mind. The reality of it is he doesn't even go by Dwight York. But when they captured him, they have him, because he goes by different names, of course, at different schools. But Dwight York was a name that he had as a child at one point. Remember, at one point it was just York. And by his stepfather, David, he was given the name Dwight. Mm-hmm. Because his father's name, his stepfather is David Dwight York. So he was given Dwight at some point. But that's not the name that he was going by. So when they were calling him that in Edenton, he would stand up, even while his lawyer Garland was sitting there next to him. He would say, no, that's not my name. You're going to be fined for using a name that's not mine. So that's reality. Yeah, he's in prison. This is not something that they created, because a lot of people, and this is reality, a lot of people did not want to accept that he was in prison. And they wanted to think like he just left his body and went somewhere, or he was a sighting here and a sighting there. That spaced out stuff, man, doesn't work, man, because that puts his life in danger, because while you're spacing out, he's still in prison. Mm-hmm. There was a list of, and it ended up revolving those that were able to see him, those that were not able to see him. If you call up, at one point, you were able to call Florence and ask him, what's the situation going on? And they would say, okay, yeah, he's here. He's here. This is the situation. He's locked up for X amount of time. This is what he can do. This is what he can't do. This is reality. So I have family members that went to go see him and confirmed, yes, he's there. They have no reason to lie about something like that. So a lot of people going around saying these things, it was just a lot of talk, man. And that was just crazy. You can't, it would say, oh, you can't prove to me. How do you know? Or you didn't go see. And it was like, you know what? I'm not about to argue with you, because that's ridiculous. Like, stop doing that, because that one statement could get a bunch of people saying, oh, well, maybe he isn't in there. Why would he, at a height that he was at before May 8th, 2002, just disappear and then create a hysteria of, well, he's not really in jail, he's not really in prison, and he's somewhere else on a motorcycle? Why would he do that? And he wrote that many books and did all that many did all them classes. He taught all those classes and lectures, and then all of a sudden, that doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. I could understand him saying, well, look, I'm going to relocate to Africa, and those who can go, those who can't, I clearly understand. That would make more sense, as opposed to him just faking his incarceration. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And then faking the whole court thing and the allegations and going and making that publicized just to say that I did something totally different. I totally get exactly where you're coming from, bro. I do. There's an air, though. There's always been an air and a mystery around the master teacher, because sometimes he kind of knows stuff that we don't know about what he's doing, right? So, like, some people was like, you know what? He's not there. He's pretty much gone back on the ship. We here. You know, they were using different pieces of information from the doctrine over the years to create new philosophies about what's really going on, and they were confusing people, you know, in the midst of all of that, you know. And to me, you know, I think one of the isms that I adopted through the knowledge over the years is realism, you know, and everything's real to me, you know. Everything I ever learned from Pop was real. The ETs, the spiritual being, all that shit is fucking real to me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, water is wet, fire is hot. It's just certain fundamentals that don't change the game. So when they was like, he could be here, he could be there, my thing was, if I don't hear him say it, if I don't see him write it, I can't co-sign it. And so I always thought, well, yeah, he's definitely incarcerated, and people are just panicking because they don't want to, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, they don't want to believe it, you know. But going down to, I think, the last two Savior's Days that I attended was like 2001. Right. And then it was 2001, I think it was Heru that was speaking, you know, on the Master Teacher's behalf. And the energy, 2001 on the land, I would probably say for the first time being on the land, that it was a bunch of fake-ass niggas on the land. A bunch of wretched-ass chicks on the land. And so that's when I knew that it was over as far as the land was concerned. You know, as far as having that energy and having that presence to when you go there, you feel transformed. I felt like that shit was over with in 2001. And I was kind of looking around at all the agents. You see them, you feel them, you know them. You know who ain't been there for years, and you know who don't speak the dialogue or the dialect. And it's like, wow, it's over. Man, that broke my heart, dude. That broke my heart. So I was like, you know what, let me go back to Tennessee and let me just wait it out. If they say he's over here in Liberia, if they say he's over here, I'm not going to believe none of that shit. I just got to wait it out. So I wrote him a couple of times, and one time he wrote me back, and he wrote me back half in English and then half in Arabic, right? And he asked me in English to get the Arabic part to, like, I think his sister at the time, right? And he told me exactly who she was and who to call. And so I called him, and I explained everything in the letter, and I sent them the letter. And that was kind of like the end of that. He also wrote me back at another time where he sent me like I guess it was like a card or something. It was half of it was in Arabic, you know, and it was more like he was confirming that, you know, he knew that I was at Savior's Day 2000 and 2001. And I'm kind of getting spooky. I'm like, dang, how the hell he know that I was at Savior's Day if he's locked up? So there is a certain type of air or mystery around the capabilities, you know, saying a Pop sometimes. And sometimes the old heads would tell me stories from the Ansar, the Philly days, or the New York days, and the shit kind of seemed mysterious, and it seemed, you know, bigger than life. Right. So I can understand how when Pop say something, people will jump on it to the extreme and totally misinterpret it based on how they see him as an extra, you know, an extra type of dude, extra type of person, because right. You know we know he's Melchizedek incarnated, right, or being guided by that spirit. So I can kind of see when he say something, how niggas move off of it, and they put too much into it. You know, they exaggerate it, you know, because there is a mystery around him. So if you could, I know this is your Pop for real, and you grew up with him, and you see him maybe a little bit different than most of us who kind of came in reading the books, see him as a father figure. You know, can you? I know you say he's definitely there, but has Pop ever said anything about being turned off with people that kind of worship him in a subtle kind of way? You follow what I'm saying?
He doesn't respect them.
Does that make any sense?
He doesn't respect them.
Okay.
His thing is that he likes people who can listen to guidance, but are also independent. You know, people think that he's more on people who just listen to every word and hang on every word. That's not him. He didn't respect that. People created that aura, and that wasn't there. people didn't know how to put things in context, and people still don't know how to put things in context. Pops is a human being that is an avatar, just like Sirti Sai Baba was and Sai Baba was, the two avatars from India. You understand what I'm saying? And the last one that was still alive was Sirti Sai Baba, and he ended up dying. You know, the light skinned
a few years ago with the fro. He's in the own books and lessons. Man, it broke my heart because we push his incense hard here, man. And when he passed away, I was like, damn, Doc is locked up. Sai Baba just passed. I felt like the avatars were dipping out for a reason, bruh. And it kind of got a little scary because I'm thinking if the avatars are leaving or becoming inaccessible to us, what does that say? What does that mean? You know what I mean?
If a person is teaching you something and he's teaching you the same thing, it's like this is how Pops eventually sees it, begin to see it. It's like I'm teaching you 2 + 2 is 4, right? I've been teaching you 2 + 2 is 4 since 1967. And it's 2007. I keep saying 2 + 2 is 4. And it's 2015. I keep saying 2 + 2 is 4, but you keep saying, you sure it's not 1? It's like, wait a minute. I've been saying the same thing to you X amount of years. And you're still not where you need to be. You're not transforming. You get what I'm saying? Like the first level of him being here was, as he said in it's one tape that's like so awesome. I finally got it now. Learn to care. He said, my first step, my first mission was to reveal the mystery of God. And the next level was to get you to transform yourself. But if you're not transforming yourself, has he failed or has he passed? Because you have beings that he communicates with, one that is Krill. If you remember, he mentioned Krill several times.
The Ramadi.
He's done. He's like, okay, they're like, it's time to let these people go. And the thing is that, again, I have to keep reiterating, Pops is not from another planet, but he's allowed to open himself up to different entities to use him. Now, if just going back to what you said earlier, if you can't prove it, don't accept it. Because, again, that's facts. If you can't if you can't prove something to me, that's like someone coming to me saying, I met someone of the Ashtar Fleet last night, and I'm like, I don't believe you. I have a right to say I don't believe you. That's real. Because if it's not a fact to you, then how is it making any sense? So the way he respects people who take instruction and build and create their own. They're still able to learn from him, but are able to create within themselves for their families. Because there's going to be a point, like he said, and this is where we're dealing with, that he's not going to be around for you to hang on every word that he says. And people are still trying to do that. And when you're telling them that's not what he wants you to do, you're still doing the same thing. So he's saying, well, I did all this for nothing, because you're still hanging on to every word. The way he thought, I can only just account for what he's been saying. In 2007, he said, you should already be at a certain point. I'm not going to slow down for you anymore. Because religion, we spent entirely too much years teaching Islam, teaching Nubian Islamic Hebrews, Judaism, and Christianity. And even Sumerian information, which is not our information. But people want that so bad. But we spent literally 30-something years on stuff that you can't even prove. But we finally got to where we need to be in terms of transformation. People are still asking religious questions. So he constantly has to keep slowing down. So he's like, why am I here if I have to keep slowing down for these people? And Yanun is like, I'm done. It's like mentally, he's like, I'm done. And he's, after a while, at one point, he was the one telling the other beings, look, I'm going to be here for a period of time. I still got to do this. They still need this. They still need that. They still need to transform themselves. That's why in 2007, he referred people to Dr. Sebi. You know, change the diet. Get on Dr. Sebi. Transform yourself. Dr. Sebi is a person who deals with electric foods, alkaline foods, stuff to help you transform yourself, but people are still doing what they want to do. So, again, he's asking himself, did I do what I was supposed to do? Because these people are not following directions. So he can only tell people to do or write as much information as possible, but if you're not acting on it, it's like, perfect example. He could write a book, Who is God, Female or Male, and can clearly tell you scientifically and use sound right reasoning that the black woman is God, and people are still arguing that point. So with the argument comes sidesteps and slow motion. You get what I'm saying? So
right.
as long as I'm debating the obvious, that's like, what does it mean for a woman to be God? The thing is, people have to transform from quoting and parroting to applying, and they're not doing that. Case in point, a person can say woman is God. How is woman is God? If I ask you how is woman God, you have to tell me. You have to explain that to me. Don't just use the mitochondrial DNA is passed from the woman to the daughter, and not the woman to the son, and not the father to the son. You know, is the X chromosome, and the woman is the X, and the man is a Y, and the man is a broken X, so he's 2.8% less sperm cell. You're just parroting what's in the book. But how do you explain it to someone who never read the book? Because a lot of times we're explaining something that we know people already know. So you're not teaching, you're just parroting. You're just repeating and regurgitating what you've already read. So if I say, okay, how do you apply being a black woman God? If someone is God, so if you have a mate in your home, the mate is the one that creates the laws, and the man is the one that instills them. He's the one that enforces them. She creates the laws. So he's the one that enforces them. You understand? Worship is praise. Worship is not groveling in front of a statue or getting a Bible and crying and foaming at the mouth. That is Satanism. Worship is to give praise to someone and allow that person to take responsibility. Part of black woman being God is black man accepting that's what that is, and also teaching that to whoever woman that is around him. And whether she is able to awaken to that fact, that's still a reality regardless. So it's how you teach it to the individual. Pops is seeing that a lot of people are not applying the information, so he's like, okay, let me pull back. I'm not doing anything else, but his job is to write books. He's an author. But then people take that into a space cadet state. It's like, no, it's not meant for you to space out over everything. It's about applying what you've learned so far as a blueprint, and how do you govern yourself accordingly to sound right reasoning? How are you using your non-mind? If you're not using a non-mind, everything that we've been doing this whole time doesn't make any sense. When I say, what is non-mind, he wants people to be able to diagnose situations for themselves. Not saying don't pay attention to updates. Of course pay attention to updates, because that's him speaking. But before you get the update, how did you govern yourself by non-reasoning? If you're not doing that, then what is the point? You know, and people ask, well, how do we know that those of ancient Kemet and ancient Tannan used 9? They immediately know that 9 was the actual number of Kemet that's found. Zahuti's number is 9. We dealt with 9 through the gestation period and the period of time it takes with 9 months for a woman for the life in that woman to be created. That's 9. That's a period of 9. And even the gestation time of 3 months makes it what? 9 plus 3 equals 12. That's a whole year. But then what's the square root of 12? You're going back to 3 again. But then at the end of the day, 3 is what? Going back into 3, you're dealing with on the other side of things. So it still equates back into 9 again. Because 9 is what? According to the 5%ers, they say 9 is what? Born. But at the end of the day, 9 is still the number of the woman, which is still the gestation period of the physical form. You understand? When you read Zhahuti, it says Khnum gave the ability to the woman, this is in the sacred wisdom of Tahuti, gave the woman the ability to pass on mother mitochondria from mother to daughter, not mother to son. The beings that were here in the physical form, the physical woman. What Pops has said recently, that the first woman on the planet was of South Africa, what the Neanderthal, or what people like to call the white man, the Bushmen, because they didn't call themselves Bushmen. The Bushmen were, as people like to call the Sans people, or the Grimaldi people, you understand, or what they will call the Khoikhoi tribe of people. The first women that were here were the Khoikhoi tribe of South Africa, and they go back millions of years, 400, some people will say 400 million years in what people like to call sub-Saharan Africa, but sub-Saharan Africa is still something that was created in the Caucasian paradigm. So all you're saying is South Africa. But you have to realize all of Africa was just one landmass, and it wasn't separated the way it is now. Separation is created by Caucasian. So when you're dealing with that, that's new information, by the way, that he is saying that.
Appreciate that.
Because another question was asked to me last week. How does that tie into the Iluls? How does that tie into the Neteru? How does that tie into the Anunnaki? And how does that tie into the Namos or the Dogon? Okay, the Dogon, I'm answering someone else's question, but still on your question at the same time. The Ilul, first of all, never came to Earth. Okay? According to the story, and according to factual evidence, because remember, in ancient Sumer, there were the Igigis that chose to stay on the planet-sized ship Nibiru, right? The Iluls were what they were in ancient Kemet or ancient Tanun and ancient Tamare. They chose not to come to the planet Earth. Khnum at one point used, and he was also represented, you know who Khnum is because he represented as the ram, who also was used in the figurine what the Satanists use as Baphomet. The Baphomet figure is what they get from Khnum. But back to the point, Khnum was what people will call the Benuat or the Manjit was used in ancient Kemet. Okay? And they was ones to come down and confront what was already here as what they said was the Dogons. The Dogons were transplanted here as a germ that was transplanted here into the primordial waters, what they will call the time of Nun. And that's what was known as the Nun Project, the transplantation that was here that evolved from the waters. The phrase Homo erectus applies to that, but it really applies to the Neanderthal. A Homo erectus is an actual upgrade compared to what whites or Neanderthals really are. But when you're dealing with what we were supposed to be and where we are supposed to be right now, Pops is saying you're not even where you need to be. You're not where you're supposed to be because you're continuing to ask the questions. He answers questions based upon what you ask. That lets me know exactly where you are depending on the question that you ask.
I got a question because you just sparked the DNA. I understand that, but it's what you just broke down, Ali. It sparked another question that's I've been kind of holding for a couple of years. You know, sometimes you have questions that you feel like only the people that know can answer them, so you don't ask them. You know, so one of the questions for me, and this is something that affected the Tennessee quote unquote Nuwaupians, is when he brought out the information, and I know this is old information, but it's relevant because when he brought out that we moved from the Ansar Allah phase and we moved to the HTM phase, we always had a focal point of quote-unquote, the Most High, the Creator, the Sustainer, right? And when he got into the Sumerian doctrine, these, I guess for lack of a better word, it became personable because then you put a face to the Most High, then you put a face to the angels, then you put a face to the characteristics of what they did and how they acted, which in some form of fashion, when you read the tablets, they do the same shit that we do. They
Mm.
kick it, they war, they fight, they disagree, they get manipulated. You know, me and my brother were reading the Gilgamesh Epics last night, and it was very, like, every time he would read something, I'm like, okay, that's like, I would translate it in layman's terms, like, oh, he got jealousy. They got jealous of him. You know, when Ishtar tried to step to Gilgamesh after he beat Humbaba or Zuin, she tried to throw him some sex. You know, just like a chick would do if you got signed. So it's like it became real comprehensive to me when we was reading the tablets of the characteristics of the Anunnaki or the Neteru, so to speak. My question to you is, because so many people became disenfranchised doctrine-wise when he brought out that Anu had parents and Anu was is in the scriptures in the Holy Tablets the Most High or the Creator, right? It kind of took away. It was a blow because people made the Creator to them bigger than how it was explained that Anu was in the tablets, for lack of a better way of putting it. You know, even reading the Gilgamesh Epics last night, it was like there was a certain part of the epic where it's like Ishtar or Isis or whatever, she kind of manipulated Anu to giving her this weapon, this animal, this bull, to go down and kill everybody because Gilgamesh didn't want to sleep with her. And I know these are stories, but when you overlay stories like that and you give the characters, you link them to the angelic beings of the Most High, it brings reality into the characteristics of what happened, but it also takes, I guess, the bigness away from your perception of the Most High when you see him acting as a physical being that got angry or that was manipulated or that, you know, was kind of blindsided on some things that his children were doing. So I would say half the people here during the time when he was breaking down the Anunnaki, late 90s, they was like, how can Anu have parents? How can the Creator have parents? And he broke down even deeper about it being a position and whatnot. But I guess I said all that to say is, a question was posed to me years ago, like, well, who do we worship? You know, and it was debatable. It was a debate that went on, like we should focus on becoming one with El Kun, one with all, you know, or we should worship and send our praise and admiration to the Most High, who, based on the perception of the tablets, is Anu. Right. So can you add any clarity? Because I've always heard Pop said that he never stopped praying. Mm-hmm. He never stopped praying. So I'm like, if he prays and he's a representation of the divine, then where do people get the idea that we shouldn't pray to anything?
Well, prayer is an example of, like, if you say Ashutat is the example of humbling God-like qualities. Right. That's what it is. And that's what prayer is. But when you're dealing with positions of Most High is a position. That's all that is. That's not something to worship. So the question is, okay, well, what should we really be focusing on? We will be focusing on Pa Kalum, or at one point El Kalum, or Pa Timta, or Pa Fa'id. That's what we will be focusing on, the all, because what we exist in is the all. Every deity that we put up from a monotheistic or a polytheistic standpoint, it still exists within the all. It can't leave it and be a separation. You understand? So it's still what it is. It's still the all. It's still the quantum composite of everything in existence, in and around, from the universe to the multiverses. It's still Pa Kalum. Because at one point in the Black Book too, he was saying Pa Kalum. And then he goes from Pa Kalum. It's still the same word, same definite article, but spoken and said in a different dialect of Nuwaupu. Because each update was different dialects. But what happens is, as I said, as I digress, people would take a dialect and say, no, leave that ever so. No, it's a dialect. So if a person doesn't get that new word, then people think that they're just not paying attention. No, they're encompassing all the words because it's our language, because Nuwaupu expands, because it is just like any other language. Every language that's Semitic was created. Nuwaupu was created. It was created from Ahramic, Soretic, and Akkadian. So it's a creation for us as Nuwaupians. And it's just that. It's a creation for us to speak. So it's an expanding language, constantly expanding, because we as gods, we will constantly expand with our intellect. But in terms of focus, you focus on self because you're God. But you within the all, you are still going to be within the all. So the all again, and then to get rid of the worship concept, the all is not something to be worshipped, but the all is to be recognized as what we exist in. You understand what I'm saying? Because if we're trying to, go ahead.
No, what you just said is clicking. And I apologize if I butt in, but it's stuff that's clicking. And over the years, hadn't really had anybody at this level to conversate with who knows Doc personally. You know what I'm saying? That's talked to him about these things. So, you know, Phantom on El Colom or the All, it makes sense because the old timers used to say something about something called divine mind. You know, and it kind of seemed like when he broke down or when he was explaining the All, that it's a frequency, it's a mindset, it's a reality that you can vibrate on, becoming one with everything around you from the inside out. Right, and it's like that actually makes sense because the more we study, because he kept saying, study the tablets. You guys got questions, and the answers in the tablets y'all not reading. So when we went back and studied them, it was like, yeah, I get the idea of the heavenly one of the Most High of Anu, but like you said earlier, and the way he described it is, it's a position, it's a seat, just like how that guy took it from Alelu and he became Anu. It's a position. And I was like, okay, I recognize that position. I see what he's explaining in the tablets, but this all is a concept, kind of like the quantum physics. It's beyond you just pointing to something as a reference and sending your praise and your admiration. It's more like it's a mindset, and I get that. I'll never forget. I think it was like 1990. It was 96, 97, where he had like a costume party at Ramsey's. I think it was Ramsey's. Yeah.
And 3 or 4, 5 hours in the tub. It just be shocking.
Go ahead, finish, brother. You just going?
Yeah, and you know, me and my guys, man. I think Doc had signed us, man. We was like the first rap group that he signed back in the day, True Form Unknown. And I'll never forget, as I was walking out Ramsey's to go to the car to get something, Pops is walking down the entrance to Ramsey's, and it's for the first time since I ever been listening to the tape since I was 13, that I was alone with the master teacher walking the same path. And so, you know, I'm young, I'm in my early 20s, and a nigga straight getting celebrity shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dad, this is the master teacher. I got all these questions to ask him. I can't wait to see him. And when he get close to me, you know, a nigga just kind of, I bugged out. I couldn't ask him anything. I was like, man, this is a nice party pop. You know what I mean? And it's like, I revisit that moment throughout my life, and I ask myself, dang, what did I really want to ask the master teacher? And I think what I wanted to ask him was something that you just elaborated on at that moment in time. He was like, you know, Anu is a position. It's a seat. The Most High is a position, whereas the all is something that we should recognize and deeper that connection with. Because I've got into quite a few debates with family that's here because of my misinterpretation of him still praying. You know, and I'm thinking to myself that if he's still praying, why the hell we not praying? You know, because a couple of times going down on the land before everything went down, guys was really on that I am God and I don't pray mentality. And it was kind of new to me because everything that he had taught us up to that point was, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or El Elo, or it was a focal point for a supreme being, you know what I mean? And we were sitting at our prayers to that. But when he broke down that Anu had parents and he introduced us to the reality of it all, it started changing things. It kind of made all the angels, Gabriel, all that, it kind of made them more human. You saw the mistakes and you saw the connection with how we fuck up as opposed to how they fuck up. But the point being that we both fuck up. So I'm like, where is the supreme being in that? You know, it made me question that. Like, how is these beings supreme to us if they do the same shit that we do? Exactly. You know, so it's like it made it more real to me. You know, And I think you just elaborated, not to keep dragging this on, but I think you just elaborated perfectly on that, on how we're supposed to recognize, you know what I'm saying, the all as opposed to sending worship or admiration in a direction. Because that didn't really make any sense to me. Like, how could you pray to something that's everywhere?
Right.
So, man, I appreciate you making that clear.
Yeah, I mean, just to elaborate just a little more, look at the example of, you could take Amun-Re. Amun-Re had the word to certain doorways to the fourth dimension, and he was the Most High at one point. That's why I say a Most High. It's not the Most High. Anytime you hear the Most High, that's a person with a monotheistic mindset. When we were in certain schools of thought, we had to have that mindset in order to fully understand what was in the information. But just like with Tum or Atum, where he birthed the 9 Enads from the primordial cell or primordial sperm cell that was germinated, and everything that came from that, the 9 Enads, Ashur, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Asad, Acid, and then that's what was created from that. That was a Most High in a specific time zone, in a specific story, in a specific time zone. But what we were doing, and what we need to be doing now, is focus on the all. But then when we're saying the all, it's still a separation. It's like it's defining from something you're looking at as opposed to something you're a part of, because nothing is truly separated. As he says, everything that you do and don't do has an effect within the multiverses. Everything you say and don't say has an effect within the multiverses. So everything is connected and not separated. You understand? Even the enemy that we're dealing with now, currently with Caucasians, is still within all. What we do and don't do still affects us. So that's still, with us, we've been in religion so much and so long that when someone says, because everyone doesn't pray, but as soon as someone says, okay, it's time to give relevance to something and have an acceptance that you are a part of something. This was what Zhahuti taught in the Outformation of Ancient Kemet, and this is also what my father was bringing back as he puts on the hat of Zhahuti or Tahuti, or as the Greeks say, Hermes or Thoth. So him putting that hat on is saying, leave monotheism alone, leave this most high above mindset alone. You understand? So that if I did make more sense to you, that was my mission, because that's the thing, is that we got to get away from that at some point. It's fine as he had defined it, had he defined what worshiping is, giving reference to something, because all it is, worship is give praise to. And the first person we're supposed to give praise to, regardless, is what we came from, which is the divine stargate that is the mother. That's reality as well. That's a divine reality as opposed to just a reality. You understand? So hopefully that was able to answer your question even further.
It does. But it brings me to another point, and I had to say that I was probably in the wrong based on my mindset that I got right now, based on how you're explaining it. But when a brother was telling me that the woman is God, and we should recognize that, you know what I'm saying, we should attune ourselves with that, and it's like, okay, I get that, because we come from that physically, but would it be incorrect to say that the woman is God on the physical manifestation? Because for years, the reason why I asked that is for years, Pop broke down that the woman is matter. She's mother. She's the physical God. And that we men, male, the masculine principle comes from someplace else. And so at an early age, it got me recognizing or thinking in the mindset that, the woman is God of the physical. She's God of the earth. So we got to be gods from someplace else. Is that incorrect in thinking that, based on what you've been taught and based on how you perceive what Pop was breaking down about that subject, about the woman being God? Because the reason why I ask you that is because I do recognize that, man, because they give birth. They give us life. However, at the same time, on this planet, a lot of women be full of that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to equate godliness with wretchedness.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do it so freely, it's like, even some of the conscious sisters, stabbers, backstabbers, it's like, what the fuck is going on? If y'all the representation of the physical God, then why y'all acting devilish? Right. So it kind of got me thinking, like, yeah, I can accept that, but them being God don't mean shit to me, because the shit is fucked up. So can you elaborate a little bit more on, I know they're God, but does that mean that physically, because we come from them physically, they are matter, they do rule this realm? I get that, but when you say they're God, what does that really mean to us as a whole, as a group of people, male and female?
Well, to respond to part of the question, we deal with, well, damn, look at what she's doing. And I always say, look at what she's been through as opposed to what she's doing. We both been through a lot during the time of slavery and during the time of what we're going through right now in his system. His system is meant to crush our minds as gods into literally animals. So what you see is a direct result of what we've been through as counterparts on this physical plane. Right. You are absolutely right. She is God on a physical level. That's why I said previously, Khenun gave the gift of mother mitochondria to the African woman of South Africa millions of years ago. So these beings that we always talk about personified in the physical form. There's many beings, but they always had counterparts on the next realm, on the realm of 9. But when you're dealing with what we're dealing with right now with sisters and brothers, we're dealing with people who are gods that are asleep. These are sleeping gods. They're asleep because of religion, and they're asleep because of what these Caucasians have put us through. That's our main problem, is because we'll see something, we'll look at World Star and be like, damn, these niggas are terrible. These are some animals.
Yeah,
but,
no doubt.
Right. But then look at this, think about this. You got the average black woman's worth is based on her endowment as opposed to her intelligence. And that comes out of slavery. The word bitch comes out of slavery because the slave master, remember, at a certain point during slavery, they could no longer go and just kidnap slaves. They would just take a woman and take a man and he would just have sex with her multiple times to create more children. The slave master would call those children bitches. Not bitches, but pups. So the pups were the product of the bitch or the main protruder, which was the woman. What came out of the woman was her pups, and the main African woman was the bitch. You understand? So a lot of what we're doing and what we're saying and how we're acting is completely a reflection of what the enemy has done to us since slavery. So when you see what you see, you're not seeing an actual situation because put in the right frame of mind, you don't see that no more. So that's the next level to see it from like, wow, this is what you do. This is the end result of an oppressed tribe of people. You get a lot of animalistic behavior. But the way to combat that and to change that and to solve that problem is with the information that she's got. And the average woman is she's gonna reject that depending on how you come at her, because most of the time they're gonna deal with the white God, Jesus Christ. But that has to be destroyed into falsehood, into fallacy, into bringing her back into who she is. Yes, we needed her to get here physically because she's a physical god of the planet, because she's connected to the earth and its paradigm will change and procession change on this planet. Of course, that's why she is known as the sun who gives substance to the children. She is the moon because of the points of the moon dealing with her period, and then the earth because of the change in the frequency of the earth. All these three things is what woman is as being God, physical. Yet at the same time, the stargate that we come through the womb is still a spiritual journey that we need to come through. So, no, it's on one level, you're right. On the physical level, she's God. That's reality. But at the same time, when you're dealing with on the other level, the level of 9, when we personify in the physical form, because non-ether was never a period where we had to evolve from monkeys. We personified, and we were able to what my father teaches involute on the planet. As he teaches, outvolution means I'm leaving the planet, and involution means I'm personifying in the physical form, which is what non-ether beings did, as that's what we did at that time.
Right.
So
right.
The woman, the African woman of yes, she is God. The black woman is God. But it needs to be taught in context and also be put in the same realm as to what's going on right now, because you can say, look, if I'm looking at it from an idealistic standpoint, black people are animals. But if I'm putting everything from a historical context, I can see that the African has been the most oppressed people on the planet, and the most oppressed to an extent was the woman, because she's been the most raped, she's been the most disrespected. Even we disrespect her because we're under a different mindset that has been destroyed by religion and destroyed by white supremacy. So all these things, all these different factors has to be put into play when we see ourselves as a reflection of the oppressor and not a reflection of who they really are. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand that. How do you explain? I understand exactly what you're saying, brother. I do. But how do you explain prior to the racism, or prior to the creation of the Caucasian race, you had black people massacring black people? Even the story Ishtar with Gilgamesh, she was manipulating. She manipulated so many dudes, throughout time. It's like that was before Caucasians walked the earth. So, I mean, even just taking it to something relevant to our time frame, where you had, the Rwandan massacre. You had, 2 tribes which were really related. One tribe was massacring the other tribe because of their ill perception of colonialism. But it was still black people murking black people. So it's like, I look at that prior to Caucasians being created. I look at how we kill each other today in this envelope of stupidity and racism and white supremacy. And to me, it appears to be the same. Like, niggas is animals, regardless if white people was here or not. I mean, throughout history, you find brothers killing brothers before Caucasians walked the earth. So it's like, I understand the systematic racism of how it could lead us to behave the way we are, but it's like beyond Caucasians being here, for lack of a better way of saying it, man, we were still killing each other. So it's like, when do we take responsibility outside of racism?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? When do we take responsibility? I know we disrespect our women, and other cultures don't do that in their music. I get how we've been colonialized in America, but when do we take responsibility? Because to me, it seems like, I get the fact that the black woman is God, but it's like at the same time, I've seen black women destroy many good dudes.
Yes.
I don't know if they was ignorant. I don't know if they was conscious, but they will destroy a dude in the right context. Could be a good dude. And they can destroy him, break his heart, break his mindset, and you end up getting the wrong chick pregnant that's totally a beast to you in your life. Not saying that that's me personally, but I've seen it happen to brothers. So I'm like, beyond the history of white supremacy and slavery, beyond that shit, when do we take responsibility as beings and just stop blaming or stop explaining or over-explaining that this is something that's systematic and it's happening? Because, we all been affected by racism, but it's your personal choice to go out there and kill somebody else that look like you. Ain't got nothing to do with racism. That's a personal choice. So it's like, that's what I'm kind of vibrating on. Do you get what I'm saying, bro?
I get what you're saying, and just to elaborate on what you're saying, also to answer the question, we say responsibility, and then at the same time, what we'll say is that racism exists. But then at the same time, we want to say, okay, well, look, this is what we've been doing for a long time anyway, as opposed to, or to try to alleviate the responsibility from them. Because when I go into history myself, like you mentioned Gilgamesh epics, the Gilgamesh epics, all this information and the Atra Hashish and the Enuma Elish, all that stuff, that's not even us as a people at all. That's all Iraq, for lack of a better word. or lack of a better name of a country. You're dealing with two different sets. Before I go deeper into your question, but there's a side answer. When we quote parts of Sumeria and Nutu Anunnaki, we have to understand it's not us. That's not our ancestors. That's the East Indians people. And they've been doing development for millions of years on this planet. So a lot of us also are genetically bred with them for a period of time. And when you're dealing with us, because let's say I go back into African history, and let's say I go pre-Kemet, pre-dynastic, there's not much record of us killing each other over land. Now, there was infighting, of course, but it wasn't to the degree of what you see right now. Because even the creation of what we call black-on-black crime is a media creation. Just to take it into a terrestrial level, that's a Caucasian creation. Because crime is something that you see, if you put it in the vicinity of a group of people that is in a poverty-stricken area, you're going to have crime. You're going to have people killing each other. You're going to have people robbing each other. You're going to have a lot of heinous situations going on with the area that is crime, dealing with poverty. It doesn't matter what race it is, that happens. That's just sociology.
That's correct.
But when you're dealing with, let's say, for example, Caucasians, on a record level, Caucasians are pedophiles, homosexuals, and rapists. This is statistically speaking. So when I'm going into our people, there's things that we do to each other, of course, that's stupid, of course. But it's not put on the same level as a Caucasian. So no, just to go to what you're saying, we were killing each other, but it was it may be for land, because you say you go back into Nubia or Meroe. It was never to the extent of what you're seeing right now. Let's say even going back into the Zulus. Go back to Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu was killing tribes off that looked like him. He was like, okay, either you gonna get with this tribe or we gonna get rid of you. Because he was trying to basically, his whole plan was to get all the African tribes that were already colonized to come together against the European. But within doing so, he was killing black people off. But that was an idea that he had. And that's an African that was doing things that people would consider negative, but his reasoning for doing it was a totally different situation as compared to a black man that's robbing somebody, killing somebody for some sneakers. Because what we see as an achievement in this society is Jordans, shoes and rims and these situations. But this is created. This is something that is created in a certain system because we didn't look at the money system like that in Africa. Of course, we had those that were pharaohs and those that would esteem, but you got to realize, again, the 46 dynasties was created based upon a defense mechanism from the Caucasians. Remember, at one point, we created a wall around the Caucasian mountains to keep them in. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? That was needed. And they eventually broke the wall down and tried to come into ancient Kemet. But the only reason why Kemet was even created, or the 46 dynasty was even created, was to push the Caucasians back into the mountains. Of course, again, just to go back to what you're saying, there's always been infighting amongst our people, of course, whether it be warring tribes, however you want to deal with it. Even when you deal with going back into the 18th dynasty where Tahaka had went into ancient Kemet, but he was the cousin of the people of ancient Kemet and had to take over because of the systematic miscegenation of the Caucasian in ancient Kemet. So there had to be a warfare in that situation in order for him to basically take over and finally push out the Assyrians. So, yeah, in that sense, things were already going on within our group. But when you're dealing with what's going on now, it is nowhere comparison to that, because we would never kill each other based upon money, shoes, clothes, a car. These are situations that a group of people will put you in to make you do negative situations. But what's the Caucasian's excuse? I'm not blaming white people. I'm dealing with historical facts. That's my thing. I don't play the blame game, but I deal with what's going on right now. And that's the thing. I rather deal with what has actually happened, and then what we do is to say, okay, well, what's the actual solution? The solution is to go back into our story and find out where we went wrong and to solve our problem. Mm-hmm. Because as far back as I can know, because Nuwaupu, the mechanism that is that science is to get to a recognition of who the enemy is. And it's ultimately not us. Ultimately is not. Because we can see that manifesting now. Because in the fourth generation, what happens is who you really are is going to manifest itself. Because as you can see, slowly but surely, black people are coming together. Whether people want to deny it or not, because of what's happening to our people, we're slowly but surely having to come to a certain consciousness of ourselves. But also what's going on is a realization of who the enemy really is and who has always been. That's also a reality. So we got to correct ourselves, but we have to, because when we come together and consolidate, we got to deal with the problem that has always existed, and they have to be corrected. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answered my question. The reason why I led with that is because, Pop told us about, of course, the devil, but then he started teaching us about black devils. And right. When he brought that out, it equated the devil. It made the devil any race, any place, any time. And so it took the racism. For me, it took like the race out of who the devil was. But I was coming from an Elijah Muhammad mentality. You know what I mean? Who the devil was throughout history, throughout time. But when Pop addressed the black devil situation, it made sense. And then it took out the fact that we couldn't be self-righteous and say, look, that's the devil over there. It took that self-righteousness away, and it made it like an equal playing field, and it kind of made you accountable for your deeds and your thoughts as a human being, as a spiritual being. Because the devil can be anybody. You know what I'm saying? So I understood that. But I understand where you're coming from, too, historically. We were never at this level of devilishment that we are today with taking each other's lives senselessly. I get what you're saying. How does the black devil, the white devil, the Asian devil, how does that come into play when what you just said is more or less the Europeans contaminating our culture to the point that we turn on each other? Because I get that we turn on each other through systematic racism. I get that. Through conditioning, through our minds being jacked up so we don't even value our own lives. I get that. But you got black devils out there too. And I don't think that the black devils were conditioned. I just think that that's their fucking nature. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the black devils exist, the white devils exist. So how can we say that Caucasians throughout history have contaminated us with this mindset that now we are against each other and we're acting like animals, when in reality, don't some of us have just as much evil in us as they do?
Well, to answer your question, and just to make a statement on top of that answer, he doesn't even teach black devils anymore. And I hate to say that, but that's reality. This is recently. And that's going to throw you off, but he doesn't.
No, but I get it, though, because,
right.
based on Pop's situation, it's Caucasians that moved on him and put that force on him to keep him there. I get that, but it was black people that led him to that situation. His own people that led him to that shit. So I'm like, I can't overlook that. I can't overlook the traitors. I can't overlook none of them dudes or females. I can't overlook what they did just because they're black. That don't make it right to me. To me, they just as responsible as Caucasians putting him in there.
But
does that make sense?
Just to answer the question, I got to answer me. Here's what I'm saying. When you're dealing with it from that angle, okay, if you go back to the Black Devil tape, he said there are also black devils that are converted into devilishment. So you have to ask yourself, Were these beings converted into devils, man? Or they were always devils? Because the term devil itself is a religious term. When we use the term black devil or just the term white devil or devil, devil is in itself a religious thing that was created, good and evil, God, devil. That's religion. So that's why he's not even using that anymore. Now you have those that were converted into devils that are used by the enemy. Those are black devils. See, what people use now when they come with the black devil and they come with that, they're coming from Sumerian information, from the seat of Nachash, right, in the Holy Tablet.
Right.
It talks about Tarnush and Halal and Melita. These are black devils, and these are those of Iraq. These were Hindu people. They were black devils. You're right. And they came directly from Nirvana, okay? Whole different dimension. But in that sense, that information had nothing to do with us whatsoever because that's who? Sumerian information. We were not Sumerians. These Sumerians were sixth ether beings. We are not sixth ether beings, although we have a sixth ether mindset now. We are not sixth ether beings. So when you're dealing with what we call black devils, because I did a whole class about it, where are the black devils today? And I literally went through the whole black devil book. It's Sumerian information. But he said years ago, it's time to get out of Sumeria. What we call, if people want to use, I never tell someone what not to use. But if a person wants to use the black devil, concept, that's fine. But put it in context of a situation. When you study sociology and you study history, the black devils that we're dealing with, if you remember the book, he was pointing out people to this day, celebrities and politicians and black leaders who were based on those that they were working with, as opposed to saying, well, they're just born to be a black devil. That's not even what he was saying. But he defined it from a Sumerian standpoint, and he put it in context of dealing with today. If you want to use the word, this is what they were. This is what they are. So to use the word now to this day, he's not even dealing with that concept anymore. That's why I said everything that's taught has to be put in the context of the reason of why it was being taught, as opposed to saying, well, this is what it is all the time. He's not even using that anymore. He's gone from that because, again, if we go back to ancient Tanun, there were no black devils. There were no black devils. They saw black and darkness as supreme balancement and the divine, and they saw white as being the devil, or what they will call Apap or Amam, the evil one. So if we're dealing with historical significance, it doesn't even exist. But if we want to use the black devil concept, that's fine. You have that right. Whoever decides to use that. But he's moving on from that. Because when he was teaching it, he taught it towards the end of Islam and also the majority of the Sumerian information. So it has to also be put in context in that sense as well. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, because that enlightens me to a whole different reality of thinking, because when you say the Sumerians, it's not us, and they are 60 beings, are you referring to like the Hindus?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because ask it, where did Nibiru land when it came to this planet?
Well, I thought Nibiru was too big to land on Earth. I thought Nibiru was like bigger than the Earth. So, but when it came to the planet, let me go back. When Nibiru came to the planet, I thought, from just my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, when the beings came out of Nibiru, you have people like Enki and Enlil, and these guys, when I see images of them, they don't look like 6 Ether to me. They look like Nubians. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They don't.
So, are not the Anunnaki Nubians, or are they what you refer to as the 6 Ether beings or the Hindus?
Well, no, they're not. Because when you're looking at the images of them, of course, you're seeing black images. You're seeing like non-ether images, because he was teaching it from a standpoint that we could easily grasp. From if I give you Melchizedek and I give him a fro, then it's a black man, as opposed to where we're phasing into now is the reality that, number one, when I say Nibiru came to planet, we're dealing with, there's multiple Nibirus. So when you learn about Nibiru, you're learning about a planet-sized ship, right? You only learn about one size, as opposed to different sizes that came to this planet as well. But when you're dealing with Enki and Ninti and Marduk, they came to Iraq. And Iraq at one point was directly connected to what we now know as India. Because those of Iraq that was 6 Ether, they migrated into East India, or India. East Indians that migrated into India. So they were 6 Ether by genealogy and by beings. So the people that we're dealing with right now is our story as Africans, as Ethiopians or Ethiopians, or those of Tanun. We don't deal with those on the side of the Tigris Euphrates and Iraq and Babylon. That's their information. That's why, if you notice, the only people that are running to that information are Caucasians. One of the main ones is Zechariah Sitchin. He's not running into our information in terms of non-ether beings of Ethiopia. He's running into the of Anunnaki, because remember, the Caucasians come out of the Asiatic black man, that is the Hindu, and what the product of that Neanderthal that came out of the East Indian is what we call the white man today. He was the East Indian albino. So he's trying to make a reconnection to who his ancestors are. His ancestors, we do not have a genetic bloodline to a Caucasian at all. That's why they had to come out and make the confession that they are Neanderthals by birth and by genealogy.
Okay.
So,
all right.
To answer your question, no, he had to teach it a certain way in order for us to understand it. It's not a contradiction, but it had to be taught in a certain reflection, as opposed to where we're going now is just degrees or steps.
Okay. So to clarify this again, because you said a lot of information, brother.
One more question for us, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man.
Okay, go ahead.
The Anunnaki, Enki and Enlil, those guys were Nubian?
No, they weren't.
Nah, they were Hindus.
They were Hindus, yes. They were Hindus.
So would that make, when we look at the images of Anu or the Heavenly One in the tablets, that's Hindu?
It's all Hindus. All Hindus. You know, when we first taught this information, we were taught it from a perspective, as opposed to where we are right now. Because each time he brought us into specific schools of thought, he was teaching it to us from like a baby food standpoint. And eventually he was able to help us take steps to getting us to reveal exactly who they really are. That's like reading the book that he wrote in the 60s, Bible Interpretations and Explanations. You realize that the only people that we were in the Bible was in Africa, and everybody after Seth were all East Indian. Abraham was an East Indian. Moses was an East Indian. These were people who were 6 Ether people. Adam was an 8 Ether being. Hoa was a 9 Ether being, and that was a test, you know, according to the Sumerian Bible, to see exactly what would happen if we put a 6 Ether being, and when we learned, remember, Hetman or Adam was an 8 Ether being connected with a 9 Ether being. If we married them up together, what would happen? If you ever get a chance to find the Sumerian tablets or the Sumerian Bible, it talks about that situation. So when you go into even with their children, Cain and Abel, Cain didn't just kill Abel, he ate Abel. Cain was a reptilian. You understand what I'm saying? They gave birth to reptilians, or what we know as 6 Ether beings. This is in information that we know as. Yeah.
Oh, what? Okay.
So when you're reading in the Bible, you're reading a point where they walked out of Africa into Iraq. You understand? So the beings that were that was the time of, let's say, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 27, when it says male and female created he them, that was the Africans. You get a point in 2 verse 7 where it says I created of the dust of the ground. That was the Hindus. There's two different creation stories taking place in the Bible. It's the separation of genealogy. And of the dust of the ground, you're dealing with the Edom or Edom, which was red or ruddy being, which was the creation of the white race. That was the Neanderthal out of the East Indian Hindu people, or the sixth ether being. So that's why certain books that will probably never come out, and it's sad that I was able to read some of that information and piece together, because the whole point of the doctrine was it's like a jigsaw puzzle that you have to piece together. But if you don't, you get real confused, because you be like, wait a minute, man, but you said that this was this, and you turn around and say this was this. It's like, no, I had to teach it to you a certain way so that you can understand the information. Because if I just went completely because of the way we were coming, he's going to test you, meaning that if he teaches you something and you still coming with baby questions, he's going to teach the next information from a child's standpoint, which is what he constantly just kept doing. So we had to keep graduating.
Right. And I felt that at probably right about 95, 96, when he laid the foundation and he started bringing the Anunnaki into play, and then everything else after that, it kind of seemed like he was, it's no disrespect, but I felt like we were being regurgitated. It was like regurgitated information. It was like some slowness going on, like we was in detention or some shit, and he kept saying the same thing over and over again, like different ways, because people would always pose the same questions but in a different way. So I'm like, why is he still teaching about this and that and that and that? Because I think what some of us wanted to hear, we wanted to hear like that Sufi, we wanted to hear that Sons of Green Light, like, you know, turning yourself inside out, and it's like the details about the historical part of the Bible and Anunnaki, that was cool, but none of that was really meaning anything except it was just history. You know what I mean? But what you just said tonight, Ali, it changes everything as far as my perception of Anunnaki story and history, because I was under the perception that the Anunnaki were Nubian. You know, and but it made sense because, you know, Captain was a ether. He was half Hindu from his mother Atum and Lilith, and then he bumps into Hawa, and she's non-ether. I get exactly what you're saying, man. Then Abraham and Moses, dude, I always thought those cats were Nubian, and that was a part of our story. But the way you broke it down, damn, it adds up. That makes perfect sense, dude. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because when the Bible was put together, it was a plagiarization of the Sumerian Bible along with the Egyptian mysteries. So when the characters were coming together, what he's saying is, in as we abbreviated BEAE, or Bible is saying that these people were from the sixth ether genealogy, because if you're starting from that point of creation, because they used the creation story of the Sumerians and the Egyptians to create their Bible and their creation stories. So what comes out of that, and in the region that they were in, would be Hindus. And the only people, that's why he kept pointing at a certain point in 2000, when we were in AEO, he would point to Ethiopia. The gold of that land was good. Remember, gold takes millions of years to oxidize and crystallize to become a physical matter. So when they were walking and they saw gold, that mineral that was in Ethiopia, that was in Kush, and over a period of time became physical. But remember, people was walking in Africa and saw it. That's something that we had already germinated here. But then when you go further and further down and you realize who was mixing with what, you know, dealing with Hetman being the eighth ether being, and dealing with Hoa, who was of the women that were already here on the planet, that was in Havilah, which is Ethiopia, and they decided to test and see what will come out of that, and what would see if we can try to breed out the reptilian gene, and they failed. So out of that was a being who dropped down after a while, which come out of the Noah and came into the Abraham, and then went into Ishmael, and then came into Moses. They could no longer eat people, but they still were six ether beings. Does that make more sense? Hopefully you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So they combine pretty much the six ether and the nine ether side to fabricate the Bible.
And fabricate the eight.
The main characters in the Bible come from that genealogy of the six ether side. Exactly. So when those Anunnaki, these beings, they were Hindu coming down, because you said there were many Nibiru's. Mm-hmm. And okay.
Yeah, because we have.
That's that, brother.
Yeah, before we shut it down, you have, when you go back to Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God, when he says God in that sense, remember that's Elohim. Elohim came down in three parts. The African gods that were non-ether personified in the physical form in three parts. It means three beings. And the three parts that did that was Khnum and his two wives. That's why it says male and female created he them. That was Africans. But then again, that's 126, 127 in Genesis. Going Genesis 2:7, you're dealing with Hindus. So we had already did what we did. But then when you're continuing into the land that they were in, the dust of ground, we didn't create a dust of ground. We didn't create a black man, black dust. That's Hindu. So yes, we were doing what they were trying to do was trying to find a way to breed out a certain gene of a reptilian, and they just was able to breed out as I said, the ability to consume an entity that came out of the sixth ether force that was in the Sumerian tablets. And but what rendered that was a combination of 9 and 6 that creates the 8. And that's what the Ketman of the Adam in the Bible, again, to reiterate, going back to Noah, his seeds of 6, and then going into Abraham and Moses and so on and so forth.
Last question. Yahshua was a real person. I've been hearing debates for years saying that some of these characters never existed. They're all fabrications from the ancient stories. Were these real beings that existed? Because Pop put out so many photos and pictures, and we were studying and living the lifestyle, and really we embedded ourselves into Muhammad or Yahshua or all these characters. Did these dudes ever exist?
No. That's a fabrication. Yahshua, I mean, that's like, for example,
the picture of Yahshua that we've been using for years, that's just something symbolic for us. It's not even a real dude.
He gave us. It was something he gave us that he was defining. Remember, he was using that in Ansar days. And remember, we were using the Christian information for years. We were using the Bible. So what he was doing was he took the Bible and he defined what he would look like according to what the Bible says. So he gave him an image. That's why he said in a book, or not in a book, but he says in the tape, are the pictures real how they look? He's like, I gave you an image. Now that I gave you an image, you as Nuwaupians don't see Yahshua as a white hippie no more. You see him exactly what I gave him. That's why he was naming names. He would name, Moses. You get a picture, I gave you Yahshua. You get a picture, you got a picture in your mind. So I changed what the Caucasians did to you by making God black. That's a step. That's a degree. But then the further and further you get in degrees, you realize that in Egyptian mysteries, there's no man named Yahshua at all. There's no historical record of a man named Yahshua at all. There's no record, there's no burial, there's no tomb. But then you can find a Sardo, who is Hardo's father, you find a tomb. So that all of a sudden, that creates the confession in the reality that the 90 Nads are real because he's connected to the 90 Nads. These are real African gods. But yet, in Christianity, there's no connection. There's even in Hebrew Israelite information, there's no truth. There's no actual confirmation. So the purpose of it was to get us to get away from the white image into the black image. And the next step is to get away from dealing with black images regardless to dealing with the fact of he never even existed. There was no confirmation, there was no person. It's a creation. It's fabrication. Right.
I do. I got you. Thank you.
No, there's no problem, man. Thank you for getting on and having questions.
Man, it's only the beginning, man. I've been looking for you for a minute, so it's good to actually touch bases with you and get some clarity on some questions I've been kind of harboring for years. You know what I'm saying? But you can't ask everybody.
Right.
So, man, greatly appreciate it, man. If you can keep me informed when the next call will be, I will definitely be on it.
It'll be next week, same time.
Okay. All right, man. I appreciate you, man. If you need anything from me, just hit me up, and we can definitely build and grow, because I really appreciate that information. You helped me out a lot, bro.
Oh, man, it's no problem, man. Hatep,
man. Thank you.
Brother Ali.
Oh, you got it. What's going on?
Can you post up the playback number again? Because I got on at 8:30, and I didn't hear the first part of the class, so I just wanted to listen to it.
Oh, it's no problem. I'll do that right now.
Okay.
All right, now.
Okay. All right. Okay. Brother Ali. I think he hung up already.
Think Ali hung up already?
Yeah, I think so. Because I was just talking to him. He had ended, and then I had asked him a question about the play.
Okay. All right, thanks, brother.
Post up the playback number. You could listen. Did you listen to the class?
I listened to some of it, but I wanted to talk to him because he hit me up on Facebook, and I used to be the pizza man at the Ansar community years ago. So I was trying to hit him up. All right, but I'll hit him up on Facebook.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay.